All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good day and welcome to another interesting episode of Global Arena on my YouTube channel, Global Arena TV, recorded on Friday, the 17th of March, 2023. I'm your host, Umar Isa Dandago. My guests today, in plural, despite living currently in 3 different continents, have one uniquely attention-grabbing thing in common. And what is it? Of course, it's something many of my friends and I as well have been hankering after for an extended period of time. I'm simply talking about the American accent. Of course, it would sound too silly and childish of me to say that, but this is seriously serious because here in Kano State, northwestern Nigeria, right now, we have a lot of young people who form groups of those that are passionate and enthusiastic about American English, and they meet regularly in order to practice it. So this is something very important. But the fundamental question here is, why are they willing and ready and so zealous about American accent? Of course, we will find out in the course of the program with my experts. But on the other hand, there are people who think American English is not only highly informal, but fully offensive. And that is why they discourage learning it. So my guests today will help prove this right or otherwise. And to do that, I'm joined from Europe by Fatima Babaji. She started studying medicine in Ukraine, but had to flee last year due to the Putin's all-out invasion of Ukraine, which is now 1 year old. She's now in Poland and has a few weeks, I believe, to graduate from her medical school. She's an English teacher as well, and her American accent is sort of, if I could say, it reflects that of the white guys. From Kano State, Nigeria, I have Mr. Usama Jilani Daya, popularly known as Mr. OJay. He is also an English teacher here in Nigeria and is believed to have been influenced heavily and greatly by the 44th President of the United States of America, Barack Hussein Obama. His voice, as one of his students told me, typifies that of the Michelle's husband. I'm talking about Barack Obama. Of course, we're going to hear from him later. Then from Far East, I've got Rukayya Alfazazi Namerage. She is an English teacher in Taiwan, a disputed island, roughly 100 miles off the coast of southeastern China. She told me that because of her American accent, she was given more priority over a guy that had master's degree because he didn't have, quote unquote, the accent. She's joining us from Taipei, the capital city of Taiwan. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for finding time to be with me on my show. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Well, of course, the pleasure is mine, and I'm fully honored to have this panel. In the morning, I was talking to a British guy. His name is Hugh Fraser. He's the founder of storynori.com, a website and a podcast channel that teaches or that produces children's stories. Of course, he told me that English teachers are also using his content for teaching in their classrooms in their respective countries, of course. And I told him about this show, and he sent me his contribution, which I would read very much later. So I think I'm going to have to start by asking each one of you to briefly introduce himself or themselves, kind of a thing. But before that, let's begin with this kind of a tricky question. Do you think that American English is what it is as popular and famous as it is right now simply because of the quote unquote American domineering roles in the global politics? Rukayya. Funny.
Could you rephrase the question again? Rephrase it, please.
Well, in a simple term, I mean, American English is trying to eclipse the British English, as many people believe. It's very much popular very famous right now around the world, not only in Africa, but in Asia and other parts of the world. Many people are copying American English, American accent. Is it because of the America's role in the global politics that tends to dominate the Latin America, but also the Middle East and other parts of the world? That is why American English has got this reception.
I think it's not only that. It's not only political wise. I think also it gets to do with like American movies, you know, like music and all of that. I think all of those things play a big part. Yeah.
So that's great. Of course, OJ, could you come in?
Yeah.
Yeah. What she said actually is absolutely true. There are a lot of things you can now take a look at. Let me remind you of the words of Prince Charles in 1995, where he said Americans tend to invent all sorts of new nouns and verbs and make words that shouldn't be. I mean, Americans create words that should not be. So we must act now to ensure that English, to him, when he said that English, he means, let me say, he meant English, the way of thinking, the way it should be. I mean, there is this sort of, let me say, argument that American English is now dominating everything because of politics. It's politics is now rich and far and near, and the second thing is because of the culture. I mean, take a look at the movies, take a look at the music they produce, and again, you can agree with me that American English is dominating everything because particularly of how the technologies and the communication technologies are now reaching each and everywhere of this world. So and the production is heavily from America, and so the influence will also be there. So what Rukayya
All
said
right.
is 100% right.
Sure. So, Fatima, could you come in? Do you believe that America's role plays a significant role in making American English kind of what it
Yeah,
is right now?
yeah, definitely. I think because of the social influence and because generally the West and America being the number one country, I guess, according to many people's opinions, that makes people want to learn the language, the English language more and sound more American. So they can sound more natural and blend in if they do visit. I think it definitely has to do with influence, political, social, media, everything.
So, Fatima, do you believe America is the greatest country on earth?
No, I don't. I'm pretty exposed. But according to the opinions of the hundreds, or I guess now thousands of people that I've met over the past 5 years, they're always so surprised. Oh, you left the United States? Why? It's the best country. So in Europe, people still consider the US to be wow. And I think in Africa, the same. So
That's great. OJ, is
to other
America the greatest?
Can I,
Yeah.
can I,
yeah,
can
I
I,
think
yeah,
people.
yeah. There is one thing Fatima should understand, that there is a difference between the greatest and the best. So America is the
Okay.
greatest country on earth, and not necessarily the best, but the greatest. So there is this difference. Fatima should have understood before she said that. America is indeed, if you ask anybody, I mean the common man and the extraordinary ones, if you ask them whether America is the greatest country, they will tell you it is true. Understand, but may not necessarily be the best.
Okay. Rukayya, America is not the best country, but it is the greatest country on earth. What is your favorite country apart from you? Rukayya, can you unmute yourself? Wow.
I was saying, I'm sorry, I was saying I do not agree that America is the greatest country. I do not agree with that at all. What I was
And
saying earlier was that I
yeah,
agree with what sorry, is it Fatima? Is that your name?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with her. It's the same here as well in Taiwan. Well, in Asia in general, they idolize the US, the West so much. Even though, like here where I live in Taiwan, it's very modern, very innovated, And I would say that a lot of things are way more advanced than they are in the majority of places in the US. However, people still idolize that country so much. People just think, oh, if you're from the US, you're like the greatest person ever, or you must be somebody they look up to, you know? So
Yeah.
I agree. It's like
But
that.
Rukayya,
Hmm?
yeah, but Rukayya,
Uh,
Taiwan is as developed and advanced as it is simply because of the help and assistance of the United States of America. Isn't
Thank
it
you.
true?
Thank you for asking this question.
Of course, OJay,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Let me answer this question.
All right.
I would beg to differ, but okay. I would beg to differ.
Well,
That is,
this,
please allow me to chip in. There is one thing I want to
OJay,
say.
come
There
in,
is one thing I want to make
of
clear
course.
here. Yeah, well, what I want to say here is okay, yeah, take a look at the number of people who are trying to speak American English.
Right.
That alone suffices to let you know that people indeed are trying to copy American English or to speak the way Americans do because of their influence. And when we talk about influence, we talk about power, and power is everything. Take a look at the economy of the United States of America. Take a look at its politics and how other developing nations are now trying to copy how exactly American politics plays. So it is important we understand this, that it may not necessarily be the best, but it is always the greatest nation on earth so far. So the indices and the
Guys, I
indicators
really
and
love this
the
debate.
statistics have
Yeah,
revealed.
yeah, sure. Of course, guys, I love this debate.
If you go
Fatima,
to
yeah.
if you go to BBC, if you go to the BBC,
Mm,
yeah, if you listen to
yeah.
their, let me say, podcasts, you find some of these American expressions used by some of these Brits, and they're
Mm,
professionals and they work with the BBC. Understand? Even the late Queen Elizabeth II had to use some sort of American English, if not American English, but in a way Americans do it. So she did the best she could. So America has
yeah,
this
yeah.
great influence, and a lot of folks say
OJ,
Nigeria
OJ is
would.
trying to OJ is trying to insinuate that America's influence has even crossed the Atlantic Ocean and even permeated
Into
and
the,
dominated
yeah,
the British
into the
land.
Birmingham
The mother
Palace.
of the Americas, Buckingham Palace,
Into
of
the
course.
Birmingham Palace.
Yeah, sure, the Buckingham
Yes.
Palace. Sure.
Uh,
That's great. So Fatima, yeah, let me bring you in. In Europe, where you are there many people who try to copy American accent, American English when they are speaking, especially?
Um, well, honestly, it depends on the context, if I may say. When I encounter teenagers, very young students, they say yo, 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 like the African American
Right.
Yeah.
Like
try to
slang.
sing and try to act all cool. Like they don't say hello, they say yo or what's good, man. So they try to copy this type of slang, this type of speaking because they think it's cool or something. Uh,
Thank you.
could be because of black. I mean,
And
that's
is it
another.
cool in America? Is it cool in America when you meet someone and say, "Hey, yo, man, what's up, dude? How
It's
may I
not
help
about
No,
it.
you?"
so if
It's,
I may chip in, Fatima, or
uh,
Rukayya, we can't directly say it is cool, but it depends on the context, as you mentioned. Understand? It depends on the kind of, let me say, socioeconomic characteristics of the people you meet. And also, another thing is important to consider the educational, let me say, level of the people you're now interacting with. Understand? Hey, yo can be said by somebody who hasn't gone to school, I guess. But the more educated people would say hi or hello or how are you or how do you do, or some other expressions you can now use.
that's
So
where I was
I
Fatima,
getting.
was just answering Omar.
yeah,
Actually, I wanted
Fatima.
to say encounter like strangers, young people, they will say, yo, what's up? But with my students, they don't say any of that. They try to speak normal English, or can I say formal English or English that's not based on locations or regional slangs. So when it comes to my students, European students from Poland or Germany, they don't try necessarily to have an American accent, but they want to work on their pronunciation so they can be understood by Americans.
That's good. That's
American.
brilliant.
So Fatima, on this note, what kind of English do you teach your students? Do you normally care about the differences between British English and American English? As it happens that most of your students are Europeans, some in Eastern Europe, others in Western Europe or Central Europe. What do you do specifically? I'm very much interested in how you teach them.
Well, I clarify that I teach American English because I really don't know. I guess British English, I know a few differences, like they use you instead of just oh and things like that, but I don't actually know the main differences and how I can teach it. So whenever they say something that I'm not familiar with, I may say perhaps this is not used so much where I'm from in the United States, but I do clarify that I teach and I don't differentiate or I don't specify that, oh, this is American, this is British. I just, teach what I know.
But you said earlier on that you try to teach them formal English, right?
Well, not that I try to teach them formal English, but when they respond to me, when they respond back the way, I respond back the same way. I didn't hear that. Could you say that again? No, I thought I heard it. No. Okay, no, I think I'm hearing my own echo. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. There's a glitch. There's a network glitch that we got, but now it's okay. We can hear you. You finished answering that question?
Yeah.
Rukayya, what type of students do you have in Taiwan? Are they primary students, secondary or university or something?
Well, I teach actually from like kindergarten, so basically preschoolers to elementary, primary, as you guys would say, primary school students. So from preschoolers, they range from preschoolers all the way to primary school. Yeah.
Okay. Right. There is a language barrier.
Yes.
Of course, whether you speak Chinese or the local Taiwanese there. Do you speak?
Yeah, I speak Chinese. Yeah, I speak Chinese. I do.
So were you born there? Were you born there?
No, I was not born here. I was just raised here. I've been here 20 years now.
So how old were you when you went to Taiwan, for example?
7 years.
That's great. So now how tricky could it be for someone like me or OJay who doesn't understand Mandarin Chinese or local Taiwanese language to teach English in Taiwan, for example? I want you to paint the picture.
Actually, I don't speak Chinese with my students. Like 95% of my students don't even think I speak Chinese. I believe that when you're teaching a language, right, you should strictly focus on that language without intermixing other languages and stuff like that, because I feel like the results aren't as great. So with my students, especially because they're so young, I start teaching them from like 3 years old, right? Whether they understand or they don't understand, I speak to them anyway. I use hand gestures and other things to get them to understand. And yeah, and then through that, after a year or two, you'll see big improvement. They start speaking. Yeah, that's the method that I use, and it's been working for as long as I can remember. I've been teaching for a long time.
Yeah. And you've been using graphics, pictures, and videos also?
Yes, I use videos, graphics, anything I can use, honestly, because also with my students, I actually teach mainly one-on-one, so it's not group lessons. My students have one-on-one lessons, so it's much easier for me to observe what kind of student I have and what is the best teaching method for that student. and whatever it is, that's what I use to accommodate that student, basically.
How easy or tough is it for you? Has it been for you?
It's very challenging because those students that come to me at that age, they know nothing. So basically I'm teaching them from ground zero all the way till they're able to speak, write. I teach them to write, speak, I teach them listening skills, all of that. I teach them basically everything. So it's not easy, definitely, but this is something that I love. It's a passion of mine, and it just motivates me every single time I see them improve, you know? Yeah.
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 Are you the best teacher?
I wouldn't say the best teacher. Definitely not. Definitely not
So
the best teacher. Sorry?
So the greatest teacher, to use OJ's English.
No, definitely not the greatest teacher too. Okay, definitely not. But there's always room
Just a great,
for everybody.
just a great teacher, right?
Huh?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, OJ is the great teacher.
I have experience. I'm an experienced teacher, I would say. I'm an experienced teacher. Yes.
At least you've clarified that. Thank you. OJ, come in. How challenging is it, has it been for you teaching English using American accent for you in Nigeria?
Well, definitely, it's a tough task actually to teach English, let alone American English, and because I remember the time I switched to American English. I remember those days when people wouldn't come to me and talk with me and let me share my experiences or let us share our experiences with one another because they would think that I would use one American accent or the other to intimidate them, understand. And my students, lucky enough, always wanted to learn American English, American accent because they find it fascinating and they think that with that they can distinguish themselves from other people. And look, American English is not just about the slight D and so on and so forth. It is so much more about the collective nouns and the spellings and the economical nature of the English. And on top of that is about you being able to stand out, being a public speaker, because a lot of the world public speakers come from the US, unlike other nations. Understand? So there is a lot of features in learning and speaking American English, but more importantly, take a look at what is happening here in Nigeria, in the northern part of Nigeria in particular, where we have people that don't even know how to speak English, let alone having the exposure, the experience, the features that can allow them to switch from some other forms of English to American English. So it is a tough
You said
task. It's
from
challenging,
some other
but I did the best.
form,
I did the best I could to change
OJ.
a reasonably great number of students, and you can see them now copying. You can see them now standing out and doing the best they can to make sure that they can speak one form of American English or the other.
Yeah, I wanted to pin you down on one of the points that you mentioned. You said some people find it hard to switch from one form of accent to American English. Are you referring this to the British English? You're not giving it some
Yeah,
respect.
yeah, I
God,
was.
you're not even
No, 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 no.
mentioning.
Come on. What is? No, 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 no. What is happening is British English is now becoming a sort of let me say an extinct thing. Understand? It is now, let me say, it is now getting off this planet because of the dominant nature of the America and Americans and other things of that nature. So I wasn't disregarding the importance and relevance of the British English, but at the same time, I was telling you that American English is everywhere, and we have got to do the best we can to make sure that we can speak it because of its
Yeah.
economical nature, because of its simplicity, because of its variety of different ways you can have to express yourself
Mm,
using your methods, or let me say, using your ways that you deem right.
mm. Yeah, of course. You said that many people use American English and like the British English is now going off the planet. Professor John Edward Phillips, an American professor of African history in Japan at Hirosaki University, may disagree with you, because earlier today in the afternoon, he sent me this, and I'm going to quote it to you. He said, more countries use British English. So I tell my students that if they want to go into international relations, they should learn British.
I disagree with him. What is happening is, look at it. Look at it.
I absolutely agree with him.
I
Yeah, sure.
disagree
He's a
with him. That
professor.
was
He's an
one
American.
principle.
He's an
Fatima,
American professor from
you
California.
could be.
He
It
is
doesn't
from.
matter. It does not matter. What matters is, look at it. Look at it. Sometimes when we say a professor, we mean a teacher. I'm also a professor because I teach.
But he is an
Understand?
American professor, 70 years old, has been teaching
I'm an
African
international. I'm an international professor. Understand? He is an
Okay.
American one, so he's more nucleated to America. I'm an international one, so I'm more. Let me see what's spread. If you take a look at it,
But he
a lot of
teaches in
people take a
Japan.
look at.
He teaches
And
in
I teach in
Japan,
Nigeria. And I teach
of
in
course.
Nigeria. I teach in Abuja. I teach in Katsina. I teach in Kaduna. I teach in Kano State.
Yeah. But
And
he has traveled the
it's
world.
okay.
Have you? He has traveled the world. Have you?
I'm traveling the world now.
Sure. And that's cool, man. I'm
Yeah,
sure Professor
definitely.
will
Let me
just
let
laugh
me
when he
let me
watches
let me let me make
landed
let me
and
make
make a
this point
point.
clear. It is important. Rukayya and Fatima should listen to what I'm gonna say here. We have the same problem here in Nigeria. Understand? You would go to one school and you would find one student saying, yeah, after the teacher's command or let me say response or something of that nature. And people would say, no, come on, you can't say yeah. Why would you say yeah? Yeah is American English. But the same principal, or let me say the same teacher, would ask the same student to go to the principal's office. And principal is American. Understand? So it means a lot of people use American English in a way they don't even know they use it. All right, we say ATM
Yeah, sure.
instead of cash point.
Mm.
We say go instead of go. Go is British, go is American, and a lot of houses here use go. So Hausa people in Nigeria use American English in a way they don't even know.
Sure.
Am I making
Sure.
myself clear?
You are, of course. So Fatima, well, yeah, can you unmute yourself and come in? Because I've seen your reaction on your face. Some reaction there on your face.
Mm-hmm.
You wanna check?
Oh,
You wanna check?
yeah, I was just gonna say I agree with both points that are being made. You know, whenever my students are taking exams, I tell them be attentive to the exam you're taking. If you're taking Cambridge English exam, learn British English. If you're, you know, it depends on the exam you're taking. But I do agree with what OJay is saying. You know, we are like everyone uses American English. It's like let's
Thank you. You got
say it's giving. All of the social media English that everyone uses nowadays, it's American English. And so
it. American.
honestly, yeah, I definitely understand where OJ is coming from, but then on the academic side, I understand where the that quote was saying, the
Yeah.
one that
Okay.
you
Okay. Yeah. The professor is saying,
yeah.
Fatima.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let me put this question to you. It's your turn. I had a little bit of debate with a couple of my co-teachers, colleagues there at school. Here is the school where we teach English, Kamfa English Academy. Well, I
Are you making
I
some
told
sort of commercial?
no, I'm not saying that. I'm just I'm just
All right.
saying it to the world that
Mention
I'm
the
an
name
English
is
teacher also.
all right. Okay, I
Yeah, I'm
see.
just
I
saying that
know.
I'm an English teacher. Apart from being a broadcaster, I find teaching really.
When you mention the name of a school where you teach, it's a sort of commercials.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to go down to the director's office and ask him to pay me some cash because I'm
And pay
announcing.
us too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm sure he would also love when he
All
sees
right.
this. Yeah, he's your guy,
Okay,
man.
yes.
He is.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
definitely.
Fatima, yeah, we were having this debate with two of my colleagues there, Malam Sadiq, about whether or not American English is difficult. Malam Sadiq says American English is very difficult to learn simply because A, it is faster than the British English, B, the pronunciation is complex. One has to stress himself before he or she pronounces an American word or an English word using American pronunciation. But Malam Abba Tijani, who happens to be OJay's, one of OJay's students, thinks that American English is simple because A, the spelling is easier to get the hang of, and B, the pronunciation is not complex. Contrary to what Mr. Sadiq said, to you, Fatima, as an English teacher who's grown up in America, living now in Europe, teaching Europeans English, is American English difficult to teach from your own side and to learn from their own side?
I want to say yes, just based on the responses I get from my students. They seem to think that British English is easier to pronounce for them. I guess it has to do with the native tongue of the students. I know in Brazil, it's also easier to mimic a British accent than it is an American accent. So it depends on the background of the student. And they all tend to say the American accent is harder to mimic. So I guess I will say yes, just based on my experience and what my students tell me. Yeah, I mean, I think the British accent is pretty hard. For Americans, it's hard to do. But I noticed that British people or English people can mimic American accent more easily than Americans can mimic British accents. So to my students, American English is harder to imitate than British English. The accent, the pronunciation, it seems like their native tongues are, I guess, more prone to pronouncing the vowels similarly to how people do in Britain, England. Sorry. I don't really know.
Britain,
so
Britain
well.
is a conglomeration of at least 3 or 4 countries. You have the England, you have the Northern Ireland, you have the Wales, and the Scotland. You got 4 things. Yeah, sure. No, Britain, I think it's the combination of 3. UK is the 4. So it's more
The
of
UK, the UK.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
So,
of course, Jay.
So when we say British English, are we just talking about, we're talking about the whole of Britain, right? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, British English, but yeah, the English spoken in those places. Yeah,
Okay.
because they're under the same territory.
I understand. Now I understand.
Yeah.
People always explain it to me and I forget, and they have to explain again and I forget, but now I hope to remember.
Yeah, that's great, of course. So let's see if we can wrap it up in the next 10 minutes or so. I have got some questions from my viewers. I put a question or a couple of questions to them. Why do people want to learn American English, and why do many people discourage learning American English here? And the reactions I got, number one is from Muhammad Bella Dabai. He's a journalist. He's a freelance journalist with DW and a journalist with Premier Radio Kano. He says, number one, American English is stylish. People want to learn it because of its stylish nature and soft power of the country. Of course, we talked about that in the beginning with all of you. But regarding whether or not people discourage learning American English, he said he doesn't know. And my friend Abdul Aziz Abla, he's my classmate at BUK. He says, why do people want to learn American English? Actually, people think speaking like Americans make them look different from other English speakers. And number two, why do many people discourage learning American English? He said, it is just me, and I don't like twisting my tongue to speak like American, and I don't feel it is necessary to speak like the white Americans since it is a borrowed language. Is there anyone who can comment on this? Rukayya?
Yeah.
The thing is, we're not speaking like white Americans. We're speaking like Americans. Understand? We need to understand that there is this difference between white Americans and just Americans. You have black people in America. You have white people in America. You have Latinos. You have all sorts of people living in America. So we don't speak like one particular race of people living in America. We speak like Americans. Understand? And nobody on this planet that would hear as speak American English and would be skeptical over whether we are imitating or we are becoming a sort of, let me say, a bunch of affectionists. No, we're
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
We're doing the best
But
we
Jay,
can.
you are said to have been mimicking Obama. You are said to have been copying Obama.
I don't copy anybody. I've been saying this time and time and time again. I had to take my time to learn American English. And whoever wants to speak American English should do the same. Understand, it is not just about saying butter, beautiful, water. That is not just about American English. There is a lot other things you can now do before you can now qualify or because before we can say that you are now a qualified American speaker.
So you
Example,
say that
when you have
you say that somebody speaks American English. You are the one doing the categorization.
no, when I say we, I mean Fatima, Rukayya, Obama, Donald Trump, and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
You understand
of
what
course.
I'm saying?
That's
Yeah, yeah,
I
definitely. So
understand.
that is let me give you some examples. For example, usually when you have short it sound in British English, you cannot have I sound in American English. Anti, anti. And where you have
Yeah.
I sound, example, where you have I sound in British English, you can now have weak vowel sound sure over there. Example,
Yeah, yeah.
fragile, fragile, organization,
Missile,
organization.
missile and missile.
Do you understand what I'm talking about? Thank you. Missile, missile, right? And where
Yeah,
you
sure.
have schwa, you may have that rounded R sound over there. Example, mandatory. That is in your accent, right? In the British accent. But in the American accent, it is
My
mandatory.
accent, our accent. Do you know my accent,
Okay, yeah.
OJ?
How about this? Yeah, definitely.
I
It is
feel like you're
British.
just putting an emphasis on the American pronunciation, not actually the American English. I feel like Mr.
No,
OJ,
what is the
your
difference? What is the
emphasis
difference
is
between
just
American
on the
pronunciation and
American
American
accent
English?
itself.
What is the difference? The question I want to ask you is what is the difference between American English and American pronunciation?
There
Is
is a
American
difference.
pronunciation not
There is a
is
difference.
American pronunciation not part is American pronunciation not part of American English?
Yeah, but I feel like your
Is
whole
American
debate
pronunciation
throughout
not
this whole
one
Yeah,
great
thing
she
is
got you.
just
distinguishing
about the
factor?
pronunciation.
Mm.
And the thing is, what I want to make clear is that it doesn't matter a person's accent. It doesn't matter. As long as the person speaks clearly.
I wasn't
Now,
talking about accent. I was talking about pronunciation. And
Let her make
pronunciation
my
is the
let
backbone
her
of
make her
each.
point,
All right,
OJ.
all right, all
Yeah,
right, all
yeah.
right,
Okay, Rukayya.
all right, let that go. Hmm.
no, my whole thing about this thing is
Sorry.
that it doesn't matter about a person's accent, right? Because I feel like Mr. OJ's whole argument in this whole thing is about the pronunciation, how you should sound more American and how the American pronunciation is like the it thing. But it doesn't really matter, right? Because just because a person has an American accent, right? Quotations on that, it does not mean that their English is good. It does not mean they speak proper English because, like I tell a lot of my students, don't think that just because an American is speaking English doesn't mean that they speak the correct grammar or they speak it in the proper way, you know? So there's a lot of Americans that I know that don't speak the correct grammar. They have the American accent, yes, but they don't
I know
have
a
the
lot of them.
correct grammar. They don't speak it in the correct way. And yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
Yeah,
may I talk? May I chip in?
yeah, yeah. Briefly, Jay, before I go to Fatima.
Okay. All right, all right, all right. And they do that because they don't go to school. If you go to school, you will do it perfectly
that's not
correctly.
true.
That
That's
is
not
just all
true.
about it.
They
They
go
don't
to
go to
school.
school.
No, they
And
go
if
to
Rukayya,
if
are
they
you
school.
go to
saying
school, they do not
is Rukayya
they go
saying
to school,
that somebody can
they
go
do
to school
not
and
go
still
to
They
the
go
right
speak
to
school.
school.
incorrect
They're
English?
You
graduates.
can't
They go to
no, you
school and
can't
they
go to
still
school.
speak
You can't
incorrectly.
no, what I'm saying is look at what I'm saying. You can go to school. I'm in the right school. And ultimately you can speak the right language. I mean, you can pronounce the right words the
But
way
I
they
feel
should
like
be.
you're only
Even
saying
if
that
you if
because you're a teacher. As a teacher, it is your
no,
job to
let me
understand the
make my
language,
sense,
right?
man.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let me make sense here. Understand? There is one thing I want to put here. Look at it. if somebody is mimicking American accents, they can say, let me give you this word. M-A-N, maybe Omar, you can pen it down.
Uh-huh.
Mandatory. How about this?
Mm-hmm.
If you presume you're now speaking American English and you say mandatory, they will now say, come on, you're not speaking American English. You're not sounding American because in America we don't say mandatory. We say
What do you
mandatory.
say there?
We say mandatory. It is mandatory, not
All right.
mandatory.
Yeah.
So somebody would be
Mm.
somebody will be out there trying to speak in an American way by saying mandatory, and at the same time, that same person is presuming or assuming that yes, they are speaking American English, but we know American English, and we'll
Yeah.
tell them that, come on, look at it. That is not how Americans pronounce it. So what I'm
Yeah.
saying is,
Fatima.
if you go to school,
Yeah.
the right school, and you meet the right
Yeah.
teachers, they will gauge your thinking of how you can
Mm.
now deal with your pronunciation. That is all
Yeah.
about it.
Let me ask Fatima to show. Fatima, what can you say about the
When
issue of
are we gonna be
faking
off?
American accent? Oh, it's time for prayer, right? So let's see if we can wrap it up in the next 2 or 3 minutes. Fatima, about
All
faking
right.
American accent. How do you feel when you hear somebody faking American accent? Fatima.
I have no opinion. I mean, if that's what they want to do, it's fine. But I do always encourage people to not stress their vocal cords. I mean, they don't have to. If as long as they can be understood, it's
They should
okay.
sing
I
naturally.
don't feel any.
Exactly.
I
Mm.
don't feel anything. It's like, okay, cool. I can understand you, but I understand that maybe they just want to. Some people just love English and they
Mm.
want to a certain way. So I just let them. I always tell my students specifically that your pronunciation is okay, but they're like, I want to sound American. And I'm like, well, you have to go to an accent coach and not just a
Mm.
English lesson because changing your accent doesn't mean you're changing your pronunciation is not directly correlated to an accent, so
Mm.
uh, yeah, I don't feel any type of way. Long story short, it's
Yeah.
okay. That's what they like.
Yeah. I Sure, of course. In 10 seconds, Rukayya, have you got something to say before I ask you the final questions?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. I don't know. This interview is getting much hotter and hotter every single blessed second. Unfortunately, I
We'll
think we
come
need
back
to.
for it.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I want to ask of you, please. In the next couple of weeks, we need to organize this, like part two of this interview. Please, if you can agree
Yeah,
with me,
definitely.
probably after Ramadan.
Yeah, that would be better.
Yeah,
After
for sure.
Ramadan will be better.
Fatima,
Yeah,
Yes.
sure,
after
definitely.
Ramadan, would you be?
Yeah, sounds like a plan. I'm also a final year student, so my schedule is really tight. So it's just if you let me know ahead of time, I could, make my schedule clear
Yeah,
and everything.
Mhm.
yeah, definitely. Of course. Finally, before I let you go, I have got a very nice contribution from Hugh Fraser. He is a British journalist. He worked for the BBC in Russia, and I asked him whether they do understand the Americans when they speak. He said, "We understand the Americans because of the films and TV, but they don't always understand us." For example, I asked for water, and the Americans could not understand because they say water. And this is really, really something. Because somebody, my boss, Usman Kabara, was telling me that somebody from Scotland went to America and he started complaining bitterly that the Americans were not understanding his accent. And he was
Mm-hmm.
like, he met
Mm-hmm.
Usman Kabara and he started complaining to him that, oh, why do these people not understand me? I speak English. They also try to speak English. And so that's really, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of complexities
Yeah.
attached to this, and inshallah, we'll definitely try to continue. Thank you very much. Let me ask you final questions. Okay, what can you say about this show, the presenter of the show, and the style of the program? So, first of all.
Yeah, the presenter is cool, and the style of the program is also cool. I'm happy to be here,
Yeah,
and I wish you all the best.
Jay, thank you very much indeed. Oh,
Anytime.
okay. Next, yeah, next, Rukayya.
Ah, Alhamdulillah. It was
say?
good. It was fun. Totally relaxed and chilled. I enjoyed it. You know, it's nice to hear other people's point of view, even if I don't agree with them. So nice.
Yeah,
We
and that's
disagree to
cool.
agree.
Yeah, Fatima, what can you say about the show?
It was pretty okay. I mean, I did enjoy hearing different opinions. I really like the passion that comes from Mr. OJ. It was actually really great.
Wow.
Yeah, I tried to
Wow, good.
neutral. I'm a very neutral person, but I think everyone has made a good point. All of the quotes that you quotes or statements that you read to us made a lot of sense. Everything was good, you know, just here.
Yeah,
All right.
and that's great. Thank you
You know
very
what,
much
guys?
indeed.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, I'm so happy to have hosted you on behalf of everyone that has contributed
Thank
to the
you.
show. I have to also thank Rukayya's father for connecting me to her. I once had an interview with him. He's a very nice person, and I'm sure I'll very soon pay a visit to him again. And I will send him the link to this interview, of course. And OJ, thank you very much. Fatima,
Good,
also
good.
thank you for being on the show.
Thank you
We're
so
looking
much.
forward to hosting you again very soon.
Okay.